Hello, coaches. Welcome back to another episode of Coach's Corner. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Angie Sanchez, who is an emotional intelligence coach. She's also an integrative health coach. For the past 5 years, Angie has been insanely passionate about empowering and educating others and paving their own way to optimal health through discovery and cultivation of emotional intelligence, known as EQ. Her firm belief is that strengthening your EQ is the gateway to fulfilling relationships and to winning at life, because now one is able to fully understand themselves and others and why they function the way they do. Her mission and what she's notoriously known for is helping you get your mind right so that your circumstances stop owning you. And Angie is also my personal coach, so she's very special to me. Hello, Angie. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm so glad you guys are having me on here. Thank you to the both of you.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. When did you start your coaching business and why?
Okay. So when was exactly 6 years ago? I registered my business 5 years ago. So I share that with you because I think it's important to note that you don't have to be fully ready business-wise to begin a coaching business. So I want you to know that I started coaching before I got my certification and before I registered as a business. So technically it was 6 years ago. I've been in practice now for 5. So 2014 and then 2015 was when I created my LLC. As far as why, there's a big story on that. Highlights from that story, I would have to say, are the fact that I'm 32 years old now. So when I was 21, I was diagnosed with chronic depression. And it was something that I knew before I even got a diagnosis. So I just kind of did that more to please my family and to kind of get some sort of external help. And as a result, I developed binge eating disorder. So I love to share that for the fact that I know how both of those minds work. And I also knew what I needed that I didn't have throughout those years and that I didn't have throughout my college experience or my high school experience. And a lot of what I didn't have were these EQ, emotional intelligence tools and resources. I didn't have any of those things. And I always say if I did, I know that it wouldn't have looked the way it looked back then for me. So that whole fiasco for me lasted about 3 years. And the recovery, because being in recovery, even though you're out of it, was way longer than 3 years. I still, till this day, it happened to me during quarantine, will have these like remnants, little pieces, this residue to deal with as it pertains to not so much the depression, but the binge eating part. So, do I believe it fully goes away? I really do believe that because it's not part of your identity anymore once you recover. I do think that you'll get triggered sometimes. As long as you have the tools that I'm talking about to manage yourself throughout that and the how-tos and the resources, it's something that you can bounce back from very quickly. And that I always say that what matters is that bounce back period, that it be shorter and quicker, which is also a true testament of your level of emotional intelligence. So that's why I started the business to that gap that I had and then those things that were missing. I wanted to embody and offer myself up to be that for other people and to help provide those tools and those resources that I never had and that didn't exist back then. And they still are not very common nowadays. So I'm here to serve the world in that way.
Angie, I think that's a really powerful story. And what really strikes me the most from what I just heard you say was that when you started, you didn't have every single piece of the business part together, like the LLC, or like, this little, doodad over here and this little part, any technology, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's so powerful for coaches to think about, like, you already have most of what you need to give to others at your disposal. And like, the other little setup stuff that can come along gradually. I think that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing that, you kind of realized that, and you went ahead and you went for it before you even had the LLC part. And the other thing that really struck me is that you were really forthcoming about sharing the depression part. And it seems to me that a lot of coaches, there's some sort of cataclysmic life event that happens more or less at the time when they're transitioning into entrepreneurship, or just before. It's the thing that really pushes them over the edge and makes them want to be a coach.
I agree.
And I appreciate you sharing that for sure. But I'm so inspired and in awe of that. But I also think back to other coaches that I've talked to who say something similar. Not necessarily the depression, but just some life event that really, really changes them and how they see things, how they see themselves and other people.
I think it's important to share, maybe not your entire story, but aspects of it. And Colleen can tell you about this. It's almost discovering what your red bottom is, with the thing about you that makes you you. And a lot of that is your own personal story, because not everyone experienced life the way you did. And it's important for people to know what some of those aspects were, because that's where that credibility and that relatability starts to become cultivated. So, I mean, I've been in situations before, not very many, where I've gone on stage and said some aspects of my story. And it's because I've said that, where people will come running to me after being like, I felt like you were speaking directly to me, or you sounded exactly like me, or that sounds exactly like my so-and-so. And like, they can totally, benefit from what you have to offer. And so I feel that once people start to hear these things, they start to see a little bit of themselves in you, which then starts to give them a little bit of hope. Well, if she did it and she got out of it, then I can too. So I think that it's very, very important to be self-expressed in that manner. And when you do so from something that actually happened to you, you do it with so much conviction because it was real. It was so real. So I think it's very important to be vulnerable, especially when starting out a business, because that's how you start to get that following and that tribe. And it's those people that can relate to you on that level.
100%. I love that. I love the idea of being vulnerable. It's so hard to do that, but it's necessary. And when I see people, like you and others doing it really well, it just, it's really inspiring. I aspire to be even more vulnerable in my business.
That's awesome.
Angie, what would you say is your favorite part about being a coach?
I'm gonna have to say and it sounds simple when I say it, and we know it's not, but it's the ability to have someone walk in the door with this ends of the world problem, and then be able to get up and leave with a solution to that problem. It's kind of like, I see no way out of this. I don't know what to do. I know that you're not going to be able to deal with this, because a lot of clients think that their stuff is too much. And so they think that they're also like a burden when they're communicating their stuff. And so they start to create this impossibility to their problem. So I think the ability to break down a problem, create a solution from it, and they're able to leave the session with something useful and something tangible. And that kind of starts that whole process of I can figure this out, and everything is figure outable. I think that's my favorite part. That's the part that feels very rewarding, so to speak, that's from stuckness to unstuckness, if I can describe it in a nutshell.
It goes with that saying you always say, which is leave people better than how you found them. And I think that that's been such a true principle to your coaching and your business and who you are just as a person. And I can say that because I've been working with you for what,
4 years now.
Yeah, something like that, going on 4. And then what ways has building a coaching business challenged you? And this could be professionally, but it can also be personally, because from what I've experienced from going down the entrepreneur path is that there's a level of personal development that has to take place, because you 100% will like face your deepest, darkest, limiting beliefs and just things like that. So what has challenged you while you were building your coaching business?
Many things were challenged and are still being challenged. And I think because I tend to do a good job of, how do I say this? It's not that I intertwine them, but it's, instead of saying work-life balance, I call it work-life blends, because I love what I do so much that it's not my job and my career, but that requires boundaries, right? So I think it's challenged me in a way where I've truly, truly learned the importance of boundaries and have had to create them in a way where they promote my main objective and intention. And they also have to promote me having my cup full so that I'm able to show up 100% for all the people who rely on me. So there's that creating of the boundaries part, but then also standing firm in them and being assertive with your boundaries, where you have to get almost, I get uncomfortable sometimes saying no, right? So, and there's many moments where I'm not uncomfortable saying no, but when it comes to my business, like, I don't want to feel like, oh my God, I can't help them now and I have to turn them away. But I also know that it's for their own good that I do that. So that was a challenge at first. And that came with, I'm going to have to say it came with volume. The more clients that I got, the more I needed to have those boundaries. And also I needed them so that my personal life was not completely affected by my business too. So definitely with boundaries. And then I'm going to have to say the other two were public speaking. Public speaking was definitely a challenge for me because it was my biggest fear in college, and I had to take a public speaking course that squashed my fears. But then when it was time to do workshops and interviews like this and get on stage and do things like that, now I had to really put that to the test. And the more you do it, obviously not just the better you get at it, but the more comfortable you feel with that. But I think that, public speaking is one of those things that I'm mentioning also on purpose, because when you overcome that challenge, it's more than just overcoming fear of public speaking. You gain this new level of confidence in yourself where you feel like you could do anything. So it stands for a lot when you're able to overcome that challenge. So for me, it leaked into other areas of my life where now I had this certainty about things and certainty about doing things a certain way and what to change and what to keep doing and what I wanted more of and what I wanted less of. So I think it represented a lot more than the actual talk itself or whatever speech I was delivering. It represented, I think, like just a part of me that like exploded and like took off. So that in that challenge, there was like this huge win as well. And then the last part I'm going to have to say is with money. Mm-hmm. And I love talking about money because as Colleen knows, I do wealth creation workshops to basically help people rewrite their money story, because we all have a money story. It's just whether that story, does it serve you or does it take away from you? So I think that I was challenged with the money part because I started to create a lot of it. And, when you ask for certain things and you get certain things, it's about how do you hold it? Now that you have these things that you ask for, like, how are you going to hold these things? So I had to learn how to be a lot more responsible with my finances and organize them in a way where I can systemize things and not have to worry about certain things, and hire an amazing CPA. By the way, that's what scares a lot of my aspiring coaching clients, who they're clients, but they're aspiring coaches, is like, it's that setup part and the taxes and listen, you just have to get familiar with the basics, right? Which a really good CPA can take you through the ropes. But then that's also twofold. You want to hire a really good CPA so you don't have to worry about that much. So I've created a system with my CPA since day one where there were expectations that were put in place where I know what I have to do and what I don't have to do. So I don't have to worry about those things. But in the beginning, when that's all brand new to you, it's a challenge that you do have to overcome with growing a business. And, you know, there's a saying that says more money, more problems. I would say with more money, there's just more responsibility. So that, even though it's a good thing that I created a lot of money and I'm creating money now in a way that it's like, sometimes it can feel like, oh my God, you know, but it comes with this level of responsibility that can be very challenging for a lot of people. So I always say, be careful what you ask for, because you'll get it and you're going to have to learn how to hold it. So for me, some of the main challenges I faced in building my business.
You know, that's really interesting because you're talking about like you grew in your business, your finances grew, you grew as an individual. And I think that there's this notion that, at least I had it when I started. It's like, you know, there comes a point where you reach success and then things are smooth sailing. Mm-hmm. But it's like you reach this next level of success, you now have different problems or different challenges.
Different challenges. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was one of these things where it's not that I wasn't prepared for it. I just think that I was like living it in real time. And I was like, okay, this is real. And I'm very much a person that's like, when I experience something for the first time and it feels really uncomfortable, I don't want to have to experience it in that manner again. So I like create a system, or I nip it in the bud. So if it does come up again, it's like, I know to do that, or I know to go to that. I don't just like let it happen to me over and over again. No, I like need to make sure that I systemize things. So I'm much like, cool, when this comes up, this is what I'm going to do. Or when this comes up, this is who I'm going to call. Or this is the file or the document or this that I'm going to access. So that was very helpful and still is very helpful for me. And I don't learn how to do everything because I don't care to do my bookkeeping. I don't care to do my numbers. I don't care about any of that stuff. I told my CPA, he's like, listen, I can teach you QuickBooks so that at the end of the year, I just do your end of the year taxes. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Because first of all, it's not that I can't. Of course I can. I just choose not to. I'm not willing to do that. It takes away from what I am here to do. And it just causes just unnecessary stress. Like, you are here to do that. You get paid to do that. And I'll be more than happy to pay you for your value and your time. That's you. So I'm also very much for outsourcing and hiring people for things, because I'm not trying to do everything here. I'm not trying to be like how my trainer Fahim calls when you try to do like a hero workout. I'm not trying to be like a hero in all aspects of my business. That's something you have to understand too. You're going to get to a point where you're going to have to make those decisions, and you have to be able to practice discernment in order to make the types of decisions that are going to not leave you depleted and leave you still able to function and being able to delegate what's mine and what can be someone else's, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense, Angie, and I absolutely love that. And I think what you're talking about with the outsourcing, like finally letting go of one little piece of the operation and entrusting it with someone else so that you can get back to the coaching part, or working with clients and building new parts of your business. I think that is so powerful. And I think it's related to the boundaries part too. Like, yes. I'm not going to do this. Like, this is a thing that I'm not willing to do because it's not fun, it's not enjoyable, and you're good at it. I don't want to be good at every single thing, and I don't have to. And I think that for entrepreneurs or people who are really driven, people who like to succeed, it's hard to make those decisions or admit, I can't do it all. I've come to the point where I have got to hire somebody else, like a virtual assistant or an accountant, or someone who to manage this little piece. And
Yes,
I love that you brought that up, because those moments come up along the journey, at various points, and just being aware that they're going to come up, and when you arrive at them and saying, yes, this is that point, and now I've got to find this person to help me do it, or outsource, and I've got to do the inner work to be able to let that part go and not be in charge of every single thing.
Yes. Amen to that, to all of that. Mm-hmm.
So I'm dying to ask this question because I think it's so important. I think this is so important. So how has, since you specialize in emotional intelligence, mm-hmm. how has strengthening your emotional intelligence, otherwise known as EQ, helped you as a coach and or as a business owner?
Oof. So it's been everything. It's been everything. I mean, from dealing with contracts and conducting consultations and dealing with people's objections and dealing with people's money stories and dealing with paying courses and dealing with relationships, because you essentially cultivate these relationships with your clients and dealing with their ups and downs so that it doesn't affect you. And I mean, every time you enter relationship with anyone, whether it's a client or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, husband or wife or whatever, relationship with yourself, relationship with your business, relationship with food, relationship with everything. If you do not know how to manage the emotions that come with experiencing those relationships, you are absolutely going to fall apart. And there's many coaches that I've met and worked with who, for example, don't know how to navigate through a no. And I think that, EQ that's the key to being able to navigate through a no and being able to handle an objection. Or if a client entertains dropping out and they want to come out of their contract and their program, and how to deal with that. And I've had to deal with a client who wanted to do that and did not want to pay their breach of contract fee, the violation. And, it could have gotten ugly, but because I, have my emotional management tools, I was able to navigate it by offering very simple options, and you get to pick one. And it only happened once, but one time is enough to really, really shock you and even traumatize you. So, I mean, these are just little examples of things that you're going to be experiencing all the time. I don't experience that all the time, but I experience a lot of things often, including a client's ups and downs. So I don't know, it's like, just in a nutshell, it's a no-brainer question to the people who are aware of EQ, but I can understand to the people who aren't aware of emotional intelligence why it's like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Yeah. So, I mean, it's everything.
Yeah. Like, I would say emotional intelligence is up there with one of the must-have skill sets if you're going to be a business owner of any kind.
Yep.
Regardless of what it is that you're operating. Because being an entrepreneur, along with everything you just said, there are so many ups and downs, and, money isn't always predictable, right? Like, it can be. I mean, once you get your system down, it can be, but who knows? What if the country shuts down,
Well, look, I was just going to say, look at what just happened, right? And it's funny because I had people come up to me, hey, how's your business doing? You okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And I got to a point, I did feel bad. And I was actually talking about it with someone who people kept asking me, and I felt bad saying, actually, my business has like kaboomed during this time. But if you have a system in place where your message is very, very clear and your ideal avatar is very, very clear, it makes sense then that in a time like this, you are going to get more business because people are flipping out.
Yeah, and that goes back to the money story. You know, just because there's a, you know, a big crisis, it doesn't mean that money stops circulating. You know, it's always moving.
It's money in circulation. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's amazing. And I wanted to say on the subject of emotional intelligence, definitely being an entrepreneur of any kind, like there's the ups and downs and just the workload and the challenge, and knowing that, you know, ultimately it does kind of fall on you, even if you do outsource. But especially for coaches, what we sell is transformation. And so that means that we're holding space for people who, like you were describing at the beginning, they come and they think that their problem is just such a burden, it's not figure outable. And we have to hold space for that and take them through that whole journey, you know. And so in most cases for a coach, if we're doing the one-on-one coaching, we're talking about 3 months, you know, or more, 6 months, a year, you know, whatever the length of the program. That's a long journey with that very intimate relationship. And so being able to hold space for your whole client list and yourself, I mean, that's a lot of stuff right there, a lot of energy.
It requires a lot of emotional bandwidth.
Yeah.
A lot. And I think that once you're in that space, that you'll know like what your number is. I get asked, Angie, what's your number on a daily basis? I'm like, well, in dream world or what I can actually do. So if you ask me in dream world, my number would be 2. That to me is like perfection, right? You know, and I'm not going to say unfortunately because I asked for this, but my bandwidth right now is 4 to 5, but that's not sustainable. So that's not essentially what I'm going for, because 4 or 5 client days are days where I know that I need to make sure that everything I do the day before is like with that in mind, because it requires a lot of emotional bandwidth. And luckily I have the knowledge of that, and I know what I need to do, and I know how to conduct myself and what I need to say no to. But I also know that I can't have days like that are back-to-back days. So my EQ helps me with days like that too, is what I'm saying. My EQ also tells me that I'm not striving to have days like that every day. So yeah.
Amazing.
And so Angie, thank you for your time and all this valuable information. We have one last question for you. And what is one piece of advice you would give someone who wants to break out into the coaching industry?
Definitely take full advantage of your relationships and resources. So sit down and do a list of who you know, what resources are at your disposal right now, and those are the people that you need to be contacting. It could be a person in this industry who may know a person here, or this relationship with this gym owner who they may not need coaching, but they're also exposed to people who may need coaching. So like, believe it or not, that's how my business started. It started with working with people I knew, or working with people that they knew. And then it just kind of starts to build from there. You always have to start with what you know and who you know. So you have to identify who your relationships and resources are, and then make sure you're taking full advantage of them.
Low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
What are your low-hanging fruit?
Accessible to you at arm's length, pick that fruit and start from there. That's why it's so easily accessible and it's so low-hanging.
I feel like if someone is able to do that, because even that might be scary for some people, even reaching out to people they know and like taking those first steps. If someone can do that and get off the ground that way, I think there's nothing that they can't do. Like that's a good step in the right direction.
100%. Yep.
Julie, did you have any last questions or remarks you wanted to add?
I just think, Angie, that you have such an interesting perspective in a really important business. And so getting to talk to you for a few minutes and just hear you talk about it and, share your story, it's been really rewarding. And I think that, anybody who's watching this episode in particular, I think that, I mean, there's some real good gems here. So I really appreciate you sharing everything. And
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, this is real life. This is how I went through it. And if I can do it, anybody could do it. I literally started my business from scratch with $67 in the bank.
And after a really crazy life
up, and it was in the middle of my life being turned where I left my job, and it was like do or die. So I think that a lot of times I see businesses not taking off because people are very comfortable and they're not making it like their only option to make this happen. So I literally made it my only option. It's like, you have to do this. You have everything writing on it, and that's how you have to treat it.
Well, on that note, that was a perfect place to end this amazing call with you. Thank you, Angie. And we look forward to hopefully having you back sometime in the future.
For sure. I'm down. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome.
Thank you
for doing this.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.